Well, the next speaker that we're going to bring up is going to introduce the many speakers that we have for you tonight that have a plethora of information that they want to share with you. We hope you're able to receive it and just know that it is important that you can share this information as well. So once you retain all this information you're about to receive, share it with others who did not come tonight. So I would like to recognize the man that I think has so much involvement in this community. He was actually named Pitt County's Citizen of the Year for 2022. He is such an amazing person. Yeah, I'm talking about you. And the fact that he is so passionate about this community is also important. So the reason why he is here is, of course, to introduce all the great speakers, but I just also want people to know how important he is to this area and what he has done in this in Pitt County for so many years. So we thank him as well. But I want to bring up to talk about the speakers and the other wonderful program members that you're going to see in a moment. We have Tom. Come on up, Tom Kilikowski.
Thank you. Lynette does my public relations. I hope all of you had the opportunity this evening to take advantage of the testing that was going on here. Because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have known that my body mass index was 36. I told them I thought there was a calculation error. They went back and corrected that and said, yeah, it's not it's a little under 25 actually. So I thought, okay, all right, that sounds a lot better. But we've got a great group of speakers tonight because, as Rodney said, too many of us take our health for granted. I know I have for too many years. And one of the things that a doctor said to me a few years ago, because I was talking to him, I said, I'm really into fitness, I like to exercise and all that. And he said, Tom, you cannot outrun your diet. You can't just add another mile a day and then forget about your diet. He said, as you age, he said, it's about 20% exercise, 80% what you put in your body. So just a word of advice, you can't outrun your diets. You got to take care of what you eat. And we got to see tonight that eating healthy, there's a misnomer, eating healthy tastes bad, right? Most of us think that way, okay, it's going to be tofu, right? You know, something like that. But as the ladies demonstrated back there this evening, that eating healthy can actually taste very good. It's nourishing, it helps us fuel our bodies, and at the same time doesn't taste so bad. So I encourage you, if you want, go have some seconds because they got plenty of food back there. All right, so now's the opportunity for me to introduce. I'm just going to introduce all the speakers at once, so it's not like a jack-in-the-box, me getting up and down. So I'll introduce them all at once, even though they're not going to speak all at once. So the first one I'm going to introduce actually had to leave this evening. So those of you that had your health screening probably got to meet Dr. Paul Shackelford. Dr. Shackelford has been a member of ECU Health for a long time. He's also on the faculty of the Brody School of Medicine. For 10 years was a senior vice president for medical affairs. And right now he's currently leading community outreach effort to address the health and socioeconomic challenges faced by members of our community. As we know here in Eastern North Carolina, and you'll hear from some of the other speakers, we have a higher incidence of some things in Eastern North Carolina than the general population in the United States. And a lot of those things are controllable risk factors. And that's some of the things that Dr. Shackelford is trying to get us to understand. Things like our A1C. Okay, it doesn't necessarily say that you have diabetes, but if your A1C levels are high, you may be more predisposed to it. Just like if your blood pressure is high, you may be more predisposed to hypertension. So helping us understand some of the risk factors. So Dr. Shackelford had to leave for another engagement. I'd like to also introduce then a couple other speakers. We've got with us Dr. John Silvernail, or many call him Dr. John. John was born and raised on the east shore of the Hudson River in Columbia County, New York. And he's board certified in family practice, general preventive medicine, public health, and occupational medicine. He moved to Pitt County about 11 years ago now, right, John? And served as faculty at the Brody School of Medicine for about 7 years until there was another calling, and maybe a higher calling. He took over in summer of 2019 as the Pitt County Health Director. Remember him as the sort of as the voice and the image of COVID here not that many years ago, right, Dr. Silvernail? So he that tenure lasted about 4 years, and Dr. Silvernail has recently decided that he's going to do some other, take a pause from what he was doing and do some other things in life. So, but one of the interesting facts about John is, in addition to his medical career, He's a longtime firefighter, fire officer, and fire instructor. In fact, he's been doing it for 40 years, he told me. 40 years. He grew up in a family where that was what his father did, was a volunteer firefighter, and John followed in his father's footsteps. So he's also the Chief Medical Officer Emeritus of the New York State Urban Search and Rescue Team, and responded with his team to the collapse of the World Trade Center on that fateful day of 9/11/2001. So locally, Dr. Silvernell is an active member of the Simpson Rural Fire Department here in Pitt County. So you'll hear from him in just a few moments. Then also we'll be hearing this evening from Dr. David Michael. He's a general internist and certified lifestyle medicine physician with over 25 years of experience as a primary care physician in Eastern North Carolina. He must have started young because he doesn't look like he's been doing it for 25 years, does he? So as a primary care physician, he became interested in clinical informatics when using a predictive analytics tool to change behavior and identify modifiable risk. So he also became the first Chief Medical Informatics Officer at Biden Health, now ECU Health, and board certified in the new specialty of clinical informatics in 2014. So after discovering this new emerging field of lifestyle medicine, he's applied his clinical time and skills and the passion of improved health for each patient. He became board certified by the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine recently, and in 2023, so this year, he stepped out of his full-time sort of executive role so that he could pursue his clinical passion as the medical director of the Lifestyle Medicine Clinic at ECU Health. So we are fortunate to have him here with us this evening. And last but not least on those that I get the pleasure of introducing is Dr. Christina Bowen. She's board certified in family medicine, integrative medicine, which I had to look up the definition, Dr. Bowen, what integrative medicine is, hospice and palliative care and lifestyle medicine. She's the medical director of the Center for Healthy Living at ECU's Outer Banks Hospital, where the focus is on integrative and lifestyle medicine for team members in the Outer Banks community. So she currently serves as a new position as the Chief Well-Being Officer for ECU Health. So her passion was fueled during the pandemic to extend her healing practices for patients to the ECU Health team, her colleagues in the health system, and she's got some amazing things to talk about that's going on, starting within the ECU Health community, but hopefully expanding to the greater Eastern North Carolina area. So please welcome, first on our program here will be Dr. John Silvernell. Talk to us.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, folks. If I wasn't old, fat, and crazy, I'd be perfect. A lot of what I have done over the years has been men's health. Before I came down here, I ran a practice in New York that met the needs, the health needs of the volunteer fire service in the Hudson Valley. And each year I examined thousands of firefighters, most of whom were men, and for 29 fire departments across 4 counties in the Hudson Valley. Many times those exams were easy to do. They were easy for me to do. They were easy for the examinee. Sometimes they were not. Sometimes we found significant things at these exams. And once I diagnosed a testicular cancer at a fire department exam. I diagnosed a probable prostate cancer at a fire department exam. And then a melanoma or skin cancer at one of these exams. So I guess the message is, and Rodney didn't tell me how long we got for these. 2 minutes? I guess the message in that is to engage with the healthcare system, to in one way, shape, or form, to make sure you get to the doctor or some other healthcare provider to have that screening exam, to make sure they look at you with a fresh eye and look for these things, because these diseases do turn up in us. There are risk factors that come with the work that we do, sometimes with the hobbies we engage in. Sometimes there are risk factors based on family history. And folks, we need to do that and address that. And where most women have the tie to the gynecologist and getting a pap smear every year, getting sort of that annual or every couple of year well woman exam, most of us don't. So if you do need an exam for your employment, if that's a firefighter exam, a DOT driver exam, a law enforcement officer exam, take advantage of that. Get that exam done and get those eyes looking at you. And sometimes it's good if it's a different pair of eyes than your regular doc, because they see you in a different way when we look at you from that occupational health standpoint. But engage with your regular doc too. It's important that you've got that medical home. I was a family physician first and then became an occupational health physician. So engage with your family doc, get those screenings done based on your age, your family history risk factors, and maybe even your occupational risk factors. And I hope you enjoy the program tonight. I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for having us tonight. This is such a blessing to get to talk to you. Dr. Michael and I kind of want to pinch ourselves that we get to talk at this in a church and talk to you about the importance of preventing and reversing some of the diseases that we see in the United States, but we really see an increased prevalence in Eastern North Carolina. And so the good news is we're excited to share with you about ways, just like Tom was saying, fueling your body with things like clean eats, healthy food, how that can actually prevent a lot of the things that we see in Eastern North Carolina. Would you like to add something, Dr. Michael?
No, that's a great introduction.
Okay, all right. So we are going to, the mission of ECU Health is to care for the health and well-being of Eastern North Carolina. And I just got out of the line, and Dr. Coles told me it's going to there's a fire that's going to get me if I don't stand right here. Something would be really good. Well-being is truly our mission for our patients and the communities of Eastern North Carolina. And to speak to Tom's point, well-being is also our mission for our team members. So this is something we're really passionate about ECU Health. We start with our team, our family, and it ripples out into our communities and our patients. So chronic disease is something that we know, I'm going to have to use these slides because I can't see that, in the United States we're really plagued by. So I don't know if you all can read those statistics, but 6 in 10 Americans have a chronic disease, right? 4 in 10 Americans have 2 or more chronic diseases. And what that often means, if you have a chronic disease, usually a lot of medications come along with that, right? And often those have some side effects as well. So 38% of Americans will be diagnosed with cancer, and cancer is one of the things that lifestyle modifications actually prevents. So it's pretty incredible. Half of all Americans have cardiovascular disease, and 1 in 3 Americans have prediabetes. It's so amazing to hear that you had the screening that Dr. Shackelford was providing earlier, because what we know is 88 million Americans have what we call insulin resistance or prediabetes. And the crazy part about it is 90% of them don't know that they have prediabetes, because just to speak to this point, we don't get those screenings that Dr. Silvernail was saying. Women, a lot of times we'll go get our annual screenings. It's so important that you take advantage of those and you get your checkups regularly to get to assure that that's not something that you're dealing with. 34 million people have type 2 diabetes. And obesity is another thing that we really see in our country, but really in Eastern North Carolina. That's something that unfortunately we know leads to things like prediabetes. It leads to high blood pressure. It leads to, I'm married to an orthopedic surgeon, it also leads to needing joint replacement sometimes, right? Because our joints are we're carrying a little more weight than we should. So a lot of things that the good news is we have a lifestyle medicine clinic, and we have lifestyle medicine that's practiced in the United States right here in Pitt County in Greenville. So Dr. Michael's going to share a little bit more about lifestyle medicine.
And he said that I've been practicing for about 25 years, but I don't think that's actually that long ago. But when Dr. Bowen talked about the obesity rates and the diabetes rates, when I graduated medical school, there wasn't a state in the United States that had obesity rates greater than 20%. Now there isn't a state that has one less than 20%. So we've seen a significant change in that chronic disease over the last 25 years, and especially seeing the increased rate of diabetes, because we didn't have this rate of diabetes or obesity just 25 years ago. And as a primary care physician, one of the things that always frustrated me was it seems like medication was the only tool that I had in my toolbox other than a procedure. And we know that prescriptions and procedures can improve, and we know that they save lives. But did you know that even change in lifestyle can not only help with management of chronic disease, but it can also prevent and sometimes even reverse chronic disease? And that was one of the revelations that I discovered, that Dr. Bowen and I we actually met at one of the lifestyle medicine conferences in Boston about 7 years ago at the Institute of Lifestyle Medicine, and became passionate about coming back and bringing that to Eastern North Carolina. So I'll often use this slide in my lifestyle medicine clinic. And I'll ask the patient, if this is your kitchen, what would be the first thing that you would do when you walked into this kitchen? And I have not had anyone say anything other than shut the faucet off. Well, if you think of that as chronic disease, this is what I felt like I was doing when I was practicing traditional medication, or traditional medicine. And where each mop is another medication, it's another procedure, and many of us in medical school hadn't even been trained efficiently how to turn the faucet down or turn the faucet off. But if you think about this in the setting of chronic disease, it's certainly natural that the first reaction would be to shut the faucet off, which I think of that as a cure or reversal. You still have to manage the mess on the floor. But lifestyle medicine is about really focusing not just on the floor, but on the faucet itself. When we look at what we call living smarter, living longer, statistically, the World Health Organization says that about 80% of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes and 40% of cancer are actually preventable with lifestyle changes. And that seems really remarkable. But this is science and evidence-based in lifestyle medicine. And one of the key lifestyle medicine scientific papers that we refer to is with an intensive lifestyle program. Dr. Bowen mentioned pre-diabetes. We've seen intensive lifestyle for patients with pre-diabetes have a 58% reduction in their progression to diabetes. And when you compare that to metformin, which is a very common medication that we use for pre-diabetes and diabetes, that's almost double the rate that you see with the medications.
We have to talk about this together because we both love it.
Yes.
You go first.
It's interesting because Dr. Ferguson and Dr. Bowen and I were talking about his passion with the Blue Zones and his recognition of the Blue Zones several years ago. So the story is that the National Geographic hired a journalist to find the Fountain of Youth. And what he did, his name was Dan Buettner, and this is about 20 years ago, he found 5 communities around the world who had the highest percentage of individuals that lived to be 100. Now, interestingly, 4 out of 5 of those communities were under the poverty level. So it wasn't great access to Whole Foods, grocery stores or the closest academic medical center that led to a lot of this longevity. And so we want to tie what they've learned in the Blue Zones to what we do in lifestyle medicine.
Yeah. And so I think just to Tom's point, I wanted to just speak to this a little bit. A lot of, you'll see up here, this is the Power 9. So these are 9 behaviors. When the epidemiologists studied these 5 regions, they said, these people, you can look on the map, geographically they are not near one another. However, they share these 9 behaviors, and have people living into their 100, they're thriving, you all. They're like, Dr. Ferguson was saying, oh man, I loved it when I saw this presentation, because it's little ladies that are 103 carrying in a stack of magazines. It's older men walking on a mountain, climbing at 95. So really living later into life and thriving. And all of these behaviors were common. amongst these areas. So this is a book that is incredible. It's called the Blue Zones Challenge, and we actually Dr. Michael and I partnered, and we thought, does Eastern North Carolina really want to hear about this? Do they want to hear about the Blue Zones? So we started with our team members, and we had in 1 week 496 people sign up to take the Blue Zones Challenge with us. We have well over 100 people each week that have tuned in for the last 6 weeks to learn about what we're going to talk about. It's really the principles of lifestyle medicine. And lifestyle medicine came about, it's about 20 years ago too, roughly. And it really uses a whole food, plant predominant diet, exactly what you're eating at Clean Eats, right? So 2/3 of your plate, vegetables, fruits, beans, seeds, grains, and nuts. It focuses on regular physical activity. So some of my patients will say, I don't like to exercise, Dr. Bowen. It's about moving your body. It's really about trying to decrease sitting as much, right? So moving your body. Restorative sleep, stress management, avoidance of risky substances, right? Alcohol, drugs, all kinds of things that really aren't going to help our bodies to thrive. And then positive social connections, and Dr. Michael and I always put in there, and a really strong spiritual faith base is another thing that they found in the Blue Zones that was common, really strong faith as well. And you know, it's the thing that I love about lifestyle medicine is it really is a relationship between the patient and the provider. And so it's you all coming together on a journey together to really hit your goals for what do you want to look like? What does it look like to thrive in your life? So the next slide, we'll go over just those in a little bit more detail. So the nutrition really is very much like you would find at Clean Eats, really focusing on, I talked with a dietitian and she said, you know, plan your meal around the vegetables and beans and fruits and seeds and things as such that you're going to eat, and think of meat as a side dish, right? So really getting in all that fiber, it's so very important. Sleep, foundational. I can probably say that to anybody. If anybody in here has had really young children, you're very acutely aware of what sleep deprivation feels like then, right? Sleep is so very, very important to us, right? And exercise, regular physical activity, just like we went over, stress management. Stress is really a part of life, but good stress and bad stress, it's really important that we have positive coping strategies. And we're not reaching for things that are going to harm our bodies. And then social connection, exactly like what you're doing right now. It is so important. One of the things that we found from the pandemic is just really knowing how important those social connections are. And one of the things we've seen over the last 20 years is the number of social connections that people have is slowly decreasing, and that it really is detrimental to our overall health. There was a big study out of Harvard, that fancy university, that showed that's one of the #1 predictors for how well you're going to be later in life is your number of social connections. Next. And this just speaks to why do I want to eat a bunch of plants? That's what I've had patients say, Dr. Bowen, I hate all vegetables. I'm like, all vegetables? Well, I like corn. I'm like, that's a vegetable. Let's start with corn or carrots or green beans. It's so important. I can tell you, and Dr. Michael, I know you would say this, I had a group visit yesterday for 6 weeks. They focused on doing these 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. I had 2 patients drop their hemoglobin A1C from a diabetic level to a pre-diabetic level in 6 weeks by practicing this. And do you see that all the time, Dave?
I saw a gentleman that I saw back this last week who, when I first saw him about 2 or 3 months ago, his hemoglobin A1C was 9.1. When I saw him this week, it was 6.7, and he was on less medication now than he was when I first saw him.
It's incredible, you know? I mean, and you know, the neat thing about it is your numbers get better, but what people tell you is, I feel great. One of my patients in group visit, she's 70 years old, and she said, I feel the best I've ever felt in my whole life. That's amazing, right? It's optimizing your well-being. It improves cholesterol. It helps maintain a healthy weight, right? We actually don't want a BMI of 36 that Tom just said they falsely were accusing him of having. Getting that BMI into a healthy level. Prevention of heart disease, right? You actually can. You heard Dr. Michael, 80% of heart disease can be prevented. That's incredible. Cancer reduction, it improves cognitive function, it can help prevent dementia. and helps with diabetes. Can help with reflux, pain. The list goes on and on and on. So how do you get started, Dr. Michael?
Well, I love this quote. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And we talk about this in the Lifestyle Medicine Clinic. In fact, I was at a talk not too long ago that the ECU baseball coach always tells his players, let's get 1% better every day. And that's what we talk about, is how do we start that journey in the right direction? And I'm amazed at how open that patients are that have diabetes or pre-diabetes in listening and trying to make those lifestyle changes. She mentioned that we have the pillars, and oftentimes we find that stress or social connectedness or the lack thereof is the first thing that we have to work on before we even start to try the exercise or the nutrition. So it's really taking that holistic approach. Set goals, provide the feedback, but do it with someone. What is that quote that you always say?
I've lots
if
of
you want to
them,
go,
Dave.
if you want to go a long distance,
Go alone, but if you want to go, go together.
Yes.
Basically. Have a tribe. That's one of the things when you look at the Blue Zones, when you look at that Power 9, is that, let me take that back, they have a tribe, right? They have somebody that's looking out for them, accountability partners, a Blue Zone buddy. So we have some handouts in the back that are, and this is a QR code we developed special for this tonight. This is our Get Your Health Back on Track. It's our passport to health. If you scan that, you can download it to your phone, and it goes over all the screenings for men that are age appropriate and a lot of other wonderful tips. Also in the back, we brought some handouts for the Lifestyle Medicine Clinic where Dr. Michael practices, and we have an amazing July 11th. We have a cooking class. We have something called culinary medicine where you can learn how to cook this food that is incredibly healthy for you. So please come and check us out there. We don't want to be sales pitchy, but this truly will change the health and well-being of Eastern North Carolina. And so this is a hill we're going to die on, isn't it?
That's
We're
right.
going to keep talking about it in Eastern North Carolina because we believe in it. So a lot of great resources for you if you want to check it out. Game Changers is a great movie. Obviously, I'm not a guy, but Dr. Michael was like, you got to tell them about Game Changers. It really resonates with men.
Has anybody seen the Game Changers documentary?
It is, you guys should have a showing of that here. It's really wonderful, and it goes over the health benefits of eating a plant-predominant diet. So thank you for having us. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much. Take advantage of the resources. You don't have to wait for us. This is available on Amazon, so if you want to find your own little tribe or group and go through the Blue Zones Challenge, we encourage you to do so.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
So we want to bring up Tom Kay. We're going to also bring up Robert and Reverend Dr. Rodney Coles. If you all would come up for our closing remarks, please.
When I first started in my career, I remember one of my first bosses telling me that knowledge is power. And I thought, yeah, that's pretty profound. But as I've advanced in life, I tend to disagree with that. Because I believe that shared knowledge is infinitely more powerful. And that's what we've experienced tonight. We've tapped into the knowledge of our presenters. They've shared it with us. And my request of you is to not hold that to yourself, but to share it with others. It becomes even more powerful, it multiplies. Things like what Dr. Michael said, that something like 50% of us will experience cardiovascular disease in our lifetime, but 80% of cardiovascular disease is preventable. Did I get that right? You know, things like that. That's what's really powerful. And I have to mention to Dr. Ferguson, early in my career I was a practicing engineer, so I got to do a lot of work on innovation and wrote patents and then scoured patents, but I got to believe that the research that I did was nowhere near as exciting as the research you got to do for your patent. One additional thing is the folks in the back with Clean Eats, they have plenty of food, So please, 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 we don't want to throw this away. So please take some home and share it with others. That'll be the first step in starting to sort of, that shared knowledge is even more powerful. And also, we have some of our sponsors in the back who have information there for us. Please, before you leave, take a few minutes to access that information. You'll walk out with more knowledge. You'll be able to utilize that to your best advantage. Dr. Michael also said one thing tonight. He said, the ECU baseball coach preaches something called 1% better every day. And I heard about 1% better every day about 2 years ago. There's an athlete, young athlete, named Chris Nikic. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Chris. Chris set out to see if he could do something that had never been done previously for someone like him. So he wanted to do a triathlon. When Chris first started, if you know what a triathlon is, it's a 2.4-mile ocean swim, followed by a 112-mile bike ride, and then you only have to run 26.2 miles to finish it off, a marathon. So Chris wanted to do this. He was 18 years old. It took Chris 6 months to be able to bicycle 100 yards. Chris couldn't swim a length of the pool for almost a year. But Chris's motto was 1% better every day. And that's what he strove for. Was I can just be, he said, I can't be 5% better, I can't be 10% better today than I was yesterday, but I can be 1% better every day. So after 2.5 years of practice, Chris did the Ironman triathlon, the ultimate triathlon. And the time that you have to qualify in, if you don't finish in 17 hours, they shut it down. Chris made it in 16 hours and 45 minutes. And he's in the Guinness Book of World Records. Not because he's the youngest person to do it, but as Chris says, he speaks with a Down syndrome accent. Chris is a young man with Down syndrome. At the age of 21, completed the Ironman triathlon, and has gone on to do more triathlons. So Chris, if you know anything about Down syndrome, people with Down syndrome lack balance. They have problems with their inner ear, so the reason Chris couldn't swim very well was inner ear issues, getting water in there. To say he had balance issues, couldn't bicycle. But he found the fortitude by just committing to be 1% better every day. He'd be able to swim an ocean swim at 2.4 miles, bicycle 112 miles, and run 26.2 miles. So what we found out tonight may be challenging for all of us, right? Some of the things that we've been shared with us this evening, some of the things that we want to commit to do. But think about what this young man aspired to do, what he was able to do. What we're going to be asked to do in comparison is nothing. We're going to be asked to make some lifestyle changes. Some small, but significant lifestyle changes. Change the way that we think about food. Change the way, the hours that we choose to eat. Change what we eat with our food or drink with our food. Change the way we look at, and it's activity, not exercise, right? Activity. It's just activity. Can you be more active? Rather than sitting and watching TV, can you take a walk? Can you do something simple like that? Can you park further away when you go to the grocery store? Can you use the steps rather than the elevator? Small changes yield big impacts. That's the message I took away from tonight. It's small changes that we can all make, that 1% better every day. It's going to have a profound impact on our life. Remember, men, it's not just our life. It's those that love us, those that care about us. We're positively impacting their lives as well. So thank you so much for being here this evening. Thank you so much for your attention. Remember, get some things on your way out, some food, get some information, and go forth and be your best you tomorrow and every day. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I just want to take a couple minutes to really thank each of you for coming out to attend this Fathers of Men conference. This is our third conference, and I'm excited when Pastor Coles and Tom started talking about health and men's health. And I know how important that is. So I really thank you for coming out. I thank all the speakers for coming out. We've got some good information around the blue zone and the keto zone. So those are things that I'll take back personally. Tom mentioned a couple of things. He mentioned knowledge. He mentioned shared knowledge was very important. But I want to take it one step further, applied knowledge. We can know a lot of things, but until we apply it, it don't work, okay? The other thing I want to mention is we talked a lot about preventive health. I want to talk about access to health. We've got some sponsors back there, Blue Cross and Blue Shield. In 2008, the Affordable Health Care came into effect. And I had a young man come to my office. His name was, I'll call him Lilo. And Lilo was about the same age as I was at the time. And Lilo he was making too much money to qualify for Medicaid. He was making not enough money to qualify for the affordable health care. So Lilo was in this gap. And for every year for the next 4 years, we tried to get him access to health care. 4 years later, Lilo qualified for disability. By December, you know what happened to Lilo? Lilo had passed. Access to health insurance is so important. And that experience, just witnessing that, because Lilo was me. Lilo was my brother. Lilo was people that was in my family. So one of the things that I really want to press for is access to health insurance. We want to go out in the communities and explain to people how to access it. It's so important. It is so important. So many small diseases are killing our communities. You know, Lilo had diabetes and had a little bit of high blood pressure. But within 4 years, we talked about chronic diseases. Within 4 years, it had a big impact on him, and I know it had a big impact on his family. So a couple things happened this year. Passing of the budget, creating the Medicaid expansion. Therefore, people have access to health care. Yes. We need to get that message out to people because it's important. You know, in a nation as great as the United States, it's a shame that everybody doesn't have access to health insurance. So I'm so happy that North Carolina now has opened that up. And that's our message going forward. Not only about preventive, not only about going to the doctors, but about access as well. So again, I really thank you for coming. I hope it was very beneficial. I really appreciate the speakers. It was amazing. Blue Zone, I'm buying the book. I'm going to scan the code. I want to be a part of that. Dr. Ferguson, I appreciate all the insight you gave us. You know, we'll be visiting your website and all that stuff, but again, I really thank you for coming.
Again, I thank each and every one who came out here tonight and all the speakers. Thank you. I also believe that a man needs to know who his wife is, and once you build those relationships, because I can tell you right now, when mama don't want to do it, mama won't do it. All right? And I can also tell you when she ain't going to cook, she ain't going to cook. And she can let you know. And that's, I mean, that's our relationship. I understand. And when I travel, sometimes she doesn't go, but she always say, have fun. You know what I'm saying? But I want to say a lot about men's health is very important, and I'm going to speak a little bit brief about the African American men's. You know, we just came from a meeting earlier today. Tom and I was at a meeting that we are part of this meeting here, and we have so many men's in jail, and then they don't have health care, and then when they come out of jail, let's look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. Is that when they come out, they get right back connected with drugs, and they can't seem to get a job. And when they get a job, they have that. What is really the whole purpose of Father and Men's and Real Men Talk? We are trying to input something into these men's life. This world have been so torn up, and I say this over and over again. The world is messed up because of the men's. The females had nothing to do with it. All right? It's us that destroy the world. And God knew he had to bring somebody to help us. He must have scratched his head. He said, this fool can't do it by himself. So let's give him a helpmate, to help him through it. But we have to, Satan really goes after the male seed. We are duplicate of our kind. It's the male. And that's what he goes after. We got to get more health in them. We got to try to show them how to get off these drugs. We're going to continue pumping this information to these men as they come out of jail. It's amazing in jail. One of the pastors would say to me, yeah, I saved a lot of souls today. And the people gave their life in the jail. I said, I say anything in jail. Wait till they get out and see what they do. But this is the constant thing and staying with them. There's so many men are lost. But we have to really look at they're lost because they're not connected to the Spirit of the Lord. They're lost and they may have 4 or 5 different children. I had a young man come to my office who had 5 children and they're not married, and he want to know why he's having all these type of trouble. When things not in decent and order, God never bless mess. Everything in our life need to be there and keep them in the Word. So we need to make sure we're taking care of this temple. There's nothing that we have that we own. Everything you have is just for the day. It's just for the day. And we try to help them get through that. We're helping them getting jobs and keep getting them off the drugs and helping them to keep their health. So I want to thank all the speakers because that's what it's about. It's never been about money. It's been about making a difference. If you're not making a difference, then you're wasting your time by making a difference. So I thank each and every one tonight. I'm going to buy that book as well. I'm going to continue bringing this information to them. We have an e-blast that goes out. I'm going to put that book on the e-blast. People buy it. And if I got to buy it for them, I'll buy it for them. But we need to continue incorporating to men. And I will tell every male here, please grab some man that you may know and bring them. Bring them to the next one. Bring them to some of the things we're doing. They lost. They lost. They lost. You heard mama boys, you got a bunch of them out here now. You see more females driving cars than you see males. And that's what we're dealing with today. They're lost. And they get incarcerated, they come out, they go right back in, they're doing drugs, they die for overdose. And these are things we need to continue, let them know that you got to get your health right. Get your health right, get your life right, and God will continue, adding to you. But they just lost. And Satan taking them over and over again. My older brother died from HIV. He was in and out of jail. I had a little sister. She was always on crack. She passed, I did her eulogy last year. It's amazing what drugs is doing. And we could talk about Donald Trump. Who cares what he do? I mean, God's love him. I love him. God be love. Who cares what he's doing? But the point is we need to focus on what we need to do today and help others. Help others. Help these men. Help these females. There's no good men for the females now. They can't find a decent man. They taking anything to come home now. Taking anything. Man don't have no direction, don't know where he's going. If he don't know where he's going, and you ain't gonna know where you're going. Everybody gonna go right there to the ditch. It's like the blind leading the blind. But I just say that tonight and just thank each and every one of you that was here. A lot of good information. Share with somebody. If you get an opportunity, grab one man, one young man, just have a conversation. I always say this, a personal touch is better than a preaching word. If you can spend time with somebody and give them a word, you don't know what no one is going through. We don't know. We don't know they lost their job. We don't know they got cancer, they lost their mother. We don't know. We don't know. We can say mental health. We all got a mental illness. You look at yourself, we all kind of nutcase. But the point is, what are we doing to try to make a difference? And that's what I'm about. What I'm doing here to make a difference in life. And so I thank each and every one of you. I'm not going to keep you no longer. But I would like to, before we close out, we're going to have a prayer from Reverend Bob Hudak. But also just a reminder, please, there's some food left back there. If you full, take it to somebody that's just healthy food. That's right. Take them a plate of food. You never know who you may bump into. Take them some food. It's there. It's already taken care of. And we also like to have every speaker after Reverend Hudak done benediction. We'd like y'all to come up because the photographer will take a picture of all of you. And I thank y'all the words you came in. Dr. Steve Ferguson, I have no idea. I don't know. It's amazing. Sometimes you think it's a mistake. I bumped to Dr. Ferguson because the number I had is James Corbett number. Ain't that something? And you came to my office at 1206 Evans Street. And we've been friends ever since. Been friends ever since. Well, thank God and thank each and every one. I'm going to get off this mic here, but I thank you. But please, just trying to understand, it's not about hey, just having food and good conversation and help. We need to do more. Amen. Amen.
Our interfaith clergy standing for the community. In our vision and mission, it's about relationships. And Pastor Coles, I had already told Dr. Bowen I'm going to buy the Blue Book. I heard you say you're going to get it. You know, we have been in touch very closely, and I'm going to ask you to hold me accountable that I put into practice. We meet often, we talk often, and if I may do that for you, but that's what we need to do. We need to start with the 1%, and we're in that. It's going to be a short blessing. I just want to say, listening to all of our sisters and brothers in the medical world, with all that you do for so many of God's people every day, I thought, thank you. I thought what a saintly man in the 2nd century, in the early days of the church, said that the glory of God is revealed when people are fully alive. And you have given us a new blueprint of just looking at one of the ways that each, in our own way, with the gifts and diversity that God's given us, to be fully alive. And I've often wondered, I'm going to say this, Dr. Ferguson, reading Genesis, in the beginning, God created, put soul into Adam and Eve. I wonder what instructions he really gave them as he sent them forth, and I heard it today. What you shared with us is, I suspect, what God told them to do as they went forth to be fruitful and to share equality as a husband and wife moving into the future. Thank you. And it was vitamin C that you were encouraging us in the last message I heard you share a few years ago.
Welcome. That's still important.
It is. So, very simply, life is short. We don't have much time to gladden the hearts of those who walk the path of life with us. So be swift to love, make haste to be kind, and listen to that spirit that is nudging us to feed body, mind, and spirit with the nourishment that will help us to be fully alive servant leaders, strong, loving, and kind in the world that we live. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.